When you look at a glass of water, what do you see? You see clarity. You think, okay, it's pure, it's safe. But what if I told you that clarity is hiding a whole world of microscopic survivors? Organisms that can last way, way longer than we ever thought possible and pose a huge threat to our health.
Let's just start with the number. 2.2 million. That's how many people die every single year from diseases they get from contaminated water. This isn't some historical problem, folks. This is a massive global crisis happening right now.
And this quote right here, it just hammers home the scale of the problem. 4/5 of all illnesses. I mean, that's just staggering. It highlights this huge global health gap and shows you just how fundamental water safety really is. And the cost? We're talking billions in healthcare every year.
So that brings us to the big question for this explainer. What is actually in there? To even begin to fix this, we've got to understand what we're up against. Who are these tiny invaders? And more importantly, how in the world do they manage to survive for so long?
Okay, so these threats, they basically come in three main flavors. We've got bacteria, we've got viruses, and we have parasites. Each one has its own little toolkit for survival, and thanks to a huge scientific review, we have a really unprecedented look at how they operate.
So, where are we getting all this info? Well, it comes from this massive review that pulled together 58 different scientific studies. This graphic here kind of summarizes what they found, and it's going to be our roadmap for understanding what's really happening just beneath the surface.
All right, let's meet the culprits. First up, bacteria. Think E. coli or Salmonella. Then you have viruses, like the infamous norovirus. And finally, parasites, like Cryptosporidium. They all work a little differently, but they share one pretty terrifying trait. They are incredibly resilient.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Exactly how long can these microbes hang out in water? Well, the answer the researchers found is, honestly, it's a lot longer than you'd probably guess. But before we get to the numbers, we got to get a couple of key terms straight.
See, scientists are really specific here. When they say survival, they mean a pathogen can stay alive and kicking for up to a year. But persistence? Well, that means it's found over and over again in the same spot for more than a year. It's kind of like the difference between someone just visiting and someone who's moved in permanently.
Okay, you ready for this? Let's start with bacteria. The review found their average persistence was 621 days. No, that is not a typo. On average, bacteria can just continuously live in a water source for over a year and a half.
But hold on, if you thought that was wild, it gets even crazier. For viruses, the average persistence just skyrockets to 1,095 days.
Yeah. Let that sink in for a second. 3 full years. Some viruses can be a constant threat in a water system for years at a time. That's a continuous, long-term risk.
So this is where it gets really fascinating. How on earth do these tiny little organisms have such incredible staying power? Well, it's not just one thing. It's actually a combination of factors that can turn a simple body of water into a perfect long-term home for them.
So what are their secrets to success? The research points to a few key advantages in the environment that these pathogens have just become masters at exploiting.
So, the first two are pretty straightforward, right? Cooler water slows everything down, including the rate at which they die. And neutral pH levels are just, well, they're more comfortable for them. But that third one, biofilms, that's their real superpower.
A biofilm is basically a microbial fortress. It's this slimy, collective shield that bacteria and other pathogens build together. When they're hiding inside this stuff, they are protected from all sorts of threats, even the disinfectants we use to try and get rid of them.
And just to prove how tough these things can be, check this out. The study found human norovirus, that really nasty stomach bug, could survive for over 2 months in water that was almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So even when conditions aren't perfect and cool, some of these guys are just unbelievably tough.
Okay, so here's the so what. What does this incredible endurance mean for our water safety? Well, this research really forces us to take a step back and rethink how we manage and treat our water, from the moment it leaves the source to the second it comes out of our tap.
And I want to be super clear here. This isn't some niche problem in a few dirty ponds. The review looked at everything: freshwater, seawater, sewage, irrigation water, even purified water systems. These microbial survivalists are pretty much everywhere.
All right, let's wrap this up and boil it all down. What are the big takeaways here? First, pathogens hang around for way longer than we thought. Second, our current ways of treating water clearly have some big limitations.
Third, getting the handle on those biofilms is absolutely critical. And finally, we just have to get better at surveillance to track these threats.
So, at the end of the day, what this all shows us is that we're up against some incredibly resilient opponents. I mean, these things have had billions of years to perfect the art of survival. So the question this research leaves us with is a really important one. Now that we know what they're capable of, are our water safety strategies actually ready for the challenge?